Well, I guess now is a good time to start. So, good afternoon and a warm welcome to today's webinar. This session is part of an ongoing series proudly hosted by finecourses.co.uk, where we explore the evolving role of artificial intelligence in the workplace and the critical skills needed to succeed in this space. We're pleased to be joined by Darren Winter, founder of Duco Digital, a specialist in AI education and digital skills development. Darren brings industry insight and practical knowledge to today's discussion, helping individuals and organizations navigate the AI landscape with confidence. Over the course of this webinar, we'll examine the importance of AI training, current trends in the field, and how to identify the right learning paths to future-proof your career or workforce. Thank you for being with us. We're looking forward to an informative and thought-provoking session. Over to you, Darren.
Thanks very much, Alex, and welcome to everybody watching now or watching again to this presentation, using AI to future-proof your training organisation. I hope you find it's going to be a very interesting session and inspiring about working with AI. And even if you're watching this and you're not from a training organisation, hopefully there's going to be some really great insights here today. I should say, if you've got any questions, you can sort of ping them in the chat or Q&A section. We'll pick those up, and Alex will field those afterwards. Yeah, feel free to to join in along the way if you've got any questions or comments that you'd like to make. Next slide, please, Evie. So who am I and what qualifies me to come here and talk to you today? Well, you can see a little bit of a bio about me on the screen there, so I won't bore you reading everything out to you. But more importantly, I just want to talk about the image that you see there. A couple of years ago, I've been working in AI education now for about sort of 6 years. So I've seen it really grow from what we are doing today, which is some fantastic things that we can do now, all the way back to really when I used to talk about AI to people, and people used to run away down the street thinking, I can't talk about that, I'm too scared about it, I have no idea. So we trained 5 academics from Indonesia. They came to Northeast England. And we worked a lot with Indonesia because they were one of the first countries to work on AI policy, to really kind of understand about how AI, the potential of it could actually change the landscape of the country and for the fortunes of the people that are there as well. And now pretty much every country has an AI policy. And I understand today that a lot of you are from different countries, different parts of the world. So probably if you're really interested about that, it may well be worth you as an action point just to research that, to understand what the AI policy is for your country. Because, you know, from a training organization point of view, or if you're working for a large organization, it can really help you with your business to understand how AI then fits into your business, but also into the wider landscape and the challenges that the country that you're working in or you're working with, you can understand what their challenges and goals are as well. Okay, next slide, please, Evie. So what are we talking about today? Well, we've got these 3 discussion points here that you see in the screen. So firstly, we'll talk about how AI can be a game changer for training organizations. And then we'll move on to what learners truly want and how to respond within the context of AI. And then how small training providers can stay competitive in an evolving industry. And it's moving really, really fast. If anybody doesn't really know about AI, it is quite difficult even for us as professionals, like, to keep up. Pretty much every single day there's something new, so it is quite challenging. It is quite fast moving, and the world, as we know, politically is also fast changing. So there's a lot here to contend with. Okay, next slide, please. So why are we talking about AI? There's lots of webinars out there. There's lots of podcasts, blogs, newsletters. Everybody's talking about AI, or at least it feels like everybody's talking about AI. But nobody really kind of sometimes summarizes why are we talking about it? Why is it so important? We're not going to go back too far, but most of us can remember the dark times of COVID and with the pandemic, and you know how the landscape really shifted for businesses and organizations, that we all had to move pretty much nearly everything operationally online for sometimes, you know, for a couple of years for some organizations. So that was probably one of the first, I think, sort of, I suppose, proverbial sort of kicks to kind of, can we do this better? We're using Zoom, we're using Teams, but most people are thinking, is this all that we can do? And I think that for those organizations, like we see OpenAI today, that probably gave them the proverbial, like, kick to say, look, we can do this, we can get it better. Because really not too soon after that, we started to see more mentions of AI, and then what it could actually do. The next thing is about growing learner expectations, sort of bringing this back to training organizations. Right now, we're seeing the world is changing really, really fast, not just because of AI, but because there's this demand from organizations to do everything much more leaner, more efficiently, to bring in communications. We're still working globally, even though politically we've been told it's not the future, but I don't really see that changing too much. And even if, say, that you're working in a much more, I suppose, introverted sort of country, or in an organization, perhaps it doesn't work customer facing, there's still so many opportunities to be leveraging technology. Digital transformation as a phrase has been bandied around for quite a number of years now. But in terms of what digital transformation means, and a lot of people still think it's about moving things like from paper to online, but actually now it's moved on from that. It's about, we've got things in the cloud, and we've got all of this data. So what can we do with it? And now with things like large language models, with ChatGPT, and with things from Microsoft, then we can start to look at some of that data, and then we can use it better to, for example, make predictions about like business, about sort of giving that model more information about what we want to do with that data, what can we get out of it, what can we extract. So these types of examples I'm giving are important to understand, because these are what our learners need to know to get jobs, to make them relevant. This is what employers are looking for. So there's a reason for training organizations to now start listening to learners to understand more about what are they looking for and how AI can really help them in their careers. We don't all need to be programmers. This is more about the kind of the softer skills, but perhaps about AI, not just about sort of creating AI apps or software.
Quick question
Competition.
is, if I can cut in there,
Yeah,
Darren, just
yeah.
about the learning expectations. It was interesting you were talking about how the students potentially are going to be driving some of this, but I also wonder how much is coming from management and organizations who are beginning to realize that there is going to be a bit of a skills gap between what companies, because as you mentioned, things are evolving so quickly, that we're outstripping our understanding of what some of these things actually mean.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, Alex. That it really is. And in fact, there's a couple of articles out this week that people are going to have a look at. One that come out, it is gatewalled, it's paywalled, but you might be able to find some highlights of information. It was a survey from Marketing Week, and it was saying that 80% of chief marketing officers have got kind of high concerns about an AI skills gap. And
Wow.
they go into a bit more detail about what that looks like. But essentially, because the technology is moving so fast, it's like, the people in those jobs, and from a leadership viewpoint, they can't sort of keep up. So they're looking now to the workforce to have some of these skills already to bring in, so the organizations themselves can start benefiting from it. Because if your organization is not climbing, it's sliding. So it's a really good phrase that another article, one of the bosses from Shopify kind of mentioned that phrase, and I really like it. Um, it was a leaked memo, and the story was published, I think it was yesterday. It's a shame it's a leaked article, because actually what he was saying is that she's really great, and the fact that this organization now expects all of their staff to be fairly well versed and competent in AI. So if you think like how massive like an organization like Shopify is, and he's saying is like, we have to be leveraging the most of AI. We need to understand more about how it works, because it's going to really help their organization sort of be at the cutting edge. They need to stay relevant and competitive. And I think that's a really good message for all of us here today, or anybody rewatching this webinar, is that it's about making us as training organizations relevant. This is just as much for me as it is for everybody that's here and for Fine Courses, all of us. We've got it, this isn't an option anymore, whether we do or we don't do AI, we have to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I think you mentioned as well before this call how the internet now is so embedded in our lives. It's almost, a human right. But will AI become a similar kind of tool that we're going to be able to use? Um, but obviously, fantastic to share that information. So we've talked about growing learner expectations.
yeah.
Um,
And then competition for larger ed tech platforms, they're a threat to us really as training organizations. So they're leading the way. They've got the investment. So for smaller training organizations, it's much harder. Where perhaps we had the edge that we're a bit more agile. We can make decisions today and start working on it tomorrow. They can't, but they've got the money to invest. They've got the teams that they can hire, and they've been probably working in this field now. They've seen this opportunity for the last couple of years. So there's advantages and opportunities for us, and to say our opportunities that we're agile, we can work quickly. So all's not lost yet. And we're going to talk about today about how we can do that. And lastly, AI is reshaping the education and training sector. I won't go too much into details now because I can talk about that in a second and explain how that's working. But for anybody who's still not convinced, it really is making a massive change. So sort of do keep listening because I'm going to talk about how you and show you how this is changing. Next slide, please, Evie. So this slide here is, I just wanted to, when we talk about AI, we kind of think maybe things of robots, things of like servers, cloud, but actually AI is all around us. So we might have smart homes. We see it in workplace automation, the software, productivity tools, and personal assistants. So if you think about just your phone, you might have Siri on there. You might have Alexa. If you think about Netflix, Spotify, Apple Music, they've been able to curate content about your interests and what you really, really like. That's all AI. So that's been here for quite some years now. Um,
Same with Google, of course. Google
and of
search has
course,
been
yeah,
very much impacted by that globally.
yes, absolutely. In fact, I won't go into that, but I've just been writing a large piece about how the internet's changed. And in fact,
Hmm.
actually, Google's now under threat because of the large language models like OpenAI. Uh,
Absolutely.
we'll save that for another webinar, I think. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to go straight into how AI can be a game changer for training organizations. So AI, it isn't just another tech trend. That's what some of us think, but it really isn't. It's fundamentally changing how training content is created, delivered, and experienced. So for small providers like us, it's less about becoming an AI company and more about how we use AI as a tool to extend our capacity, save time, and improve learner outcomes. So the first kind of box I've got here is about AI powered efficiency. So course development, there's a lot of platforms now. For example, LearnWorlds is a really great platform, content management system for training providers that they've got AI built in that you can just create a course. You can give it the prompts and it can build a course for you from start, middle, and end, including certification, quizzes, and everything. You can build it in a larger language model, like a whole course in ChatGPT. It's pretty like easy to do. You can do that now if you really wanted to. So you can see these as a way of like saving you sort of time, but there is a bit of a question here, and this is about kind of quality. So we're seeing some training providers are doing this, and I know Alex might have a comment here that some training providers are doing this as a quick way to make money. But
Mm.
there's a question here because, like, as training providers, we're in it for the long term. We're trying to convince our learners that they're going to be learning from us. They're going to be using this knowledge to help them in their careers. and to get a job ultimately, or move on into the ladder, whatever they want to do. And if we're just going to throw out sort of cheap courses,
Yeah.
that's not the point of this.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about before, Darren, and something we believe very much within the Fine Courses family, in that the education is one of the most important things that we can pay for in our lives. It's up there with buying houses, etc. And there is quality is absolutely important. We've seen, and we've talked about this before, this concept of a race to the bottom in terms of just how available and how cheap a lot of this training is. But ultimately, um, this is a tool. AI is a tool. We've talked about this before, about how there is a danger where we're utilizing this type of technology in a way that's not necessarily of benefit to the people that are going to be using it. So it is very much going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but we're very much in the camp where we want to talk about quality and having really highly skilled individuals and team members who are able to talk with authority about their subject matter, and AI is absolutely part of that.
Yeah. I've also like highlighted on the screen assessment as well. We don't have time to go into this today, and it's a bit of it's a whole subject on its own. But ultimately, there are AI solutions out there that can completely assess a learner's work, and that's more for sort of I suppose government accredited qualifications if you're from that sector. But there's questions about all of that because just for example, to give you a quick example, we're seeing more learners now using AI in their answers. So eventually, what we're looking at, just cutting to the chase here, is
Mhm.
that if we've got a learner using AI to sort of give the answers to online courses, and then we've got an AI software actually assessing. So what are we ending up here? We're maybe ending up with a learner not really understanding concepts, apart from really how to copy paste. So the essential thing is here is like it's like the calculator. But when the calculator came out, a lot of people were saying, like, well, given all the answers, it doesn't. You still have to understand how to do a maths equation, how maths work. And that's the thing, like here, that you still have to understand the concepts. It's not, I don't want to say cheating as a word, because that, again, it opens up another discussion. But I think that we have to show we have to understand that AI is here, and we have to help learners then understand how to get the best out of AI. And I think that as like training providers, that should be part of our role now. So like
I
we
agree.
assume they're going to be using it, but come on, let's see how we can get the most out of it, and then challenge them in different ways. So that again, maybe a different webinar on that one.
Well, maybe I'll just quickly throw in as well, down for the
Yeah,
chat from Richard. Seems like humans are well on the way to becoming completely superfluous. And while there's a bit of a tongue in cheek, hopefully there from Richard, I do think there's a lot of fear in the general subject matter of AI, and a lot of concern, rightly or wrongly, about how this particular new technology is going to have an impact in society in general. And again, it's something that's really important for us to all be talking about. I'm really grateful that you made the time today for us, Darren. Hopefully today's webinar is going to sort of put to bed some of those concerns, but I think it's important to talk about it as well.
absolutely. I'll come back to those points actually, because they're going to come up in a moment. Thanks very much,
Mhm.
Alex, for those. Um, I've got up here enhanced learner experience, so AI tutors and chatbots. Those again, we can even build now our own sort of chatbots using some of these large language models. It's not out of the it's not too difficult to do, and with tutors we can just train it with information. Um, Again, the central thing I'm going to kind of reiterate here is that test the model, test it out, make sure give it some challenging questions. You'll see that phrase at the bottom of most large language models that don't rely on the answers you've got here. So if you are going to use one of these, then you can always add that at the bottom, and do say is an AI agent as well. It's not a human. That's really important for transparency. But we shouldn't be seeing these as replacing us. These are tools to help us, and it is really important that within within the realms of, if you're building courses or if you're training your learners, that you also say that, because AI is should be here to help us. It's not here to replace us. I know there's a wider debate about that, but today we're looking at fully embracing the positive side of AI.
100%.
Um, one of the questions that I know might well come up is like, in terms of software that's out there. So all I'm going to say is that I'll mention a couple as we're going through, but do have a look at Capterra, G2, Product Hunt. Those are three fantastic websites, really impartial. Because they've got user reviews up there. There are some paid listings and sponsor listings there, but take it as you will. Though there's thousands and thousands of genuine reviews for those products up there. And then you can see the different types of software for different types of use cases. And take due diligence. Look at the reviews, take a free trial, and ask the developers some questions as well. So it's not just about taking the first one that's up there. So do have a look at what's right for you as an organization. And I will, as a sideline, I mentioned ChatGPT. There are other language models out there, large language models, Perplexity, Claude, Copilot, Gemini. Try them all out. I'm doing a PhD in AI ethics at the moment, and I'm really loving Perplexity at the moment because I get more richer answers. I've also used Claude. Claude didn't have the facility of actually searching the internet until recently, and I think that's just for the US audience at the moment. But now it's going to be sort of coming online, and I've tested them all out using the standard question, and I've seen different results come back, different levels of quality. So do try them all out because it's really important. And they also have different features, things like you can manage projects, image generation, video generators, task scheduling as well. And that really links into the marketing and content creation. So it's not just about blogs and newsletters, it's all those other things that I've talked about, translation and localized content I've kind of mentioned on there as well. Scalability, I just want to kind of touch on this very quickly that AI does enable small teams like small training providers to do the work of many, but the human review is absolutely critical. It's critical to make sure we get the right tone, the right relevance, and it's about trust and being transparent. There is the EU AI Act, and for those that aren't in the EU and that are here on the webinar today, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. If you are serving an audience in the EU, you are still bound to some of those regulations under the EU AI Act. And more than anything, because it is the world's first global law in AI, if you do have a look at it, just the quick summary, there's nothing there that actually we should all be scared about. It's actually things we should be doing. It's just a risk. It's like a pyramid of risk, and just seeing where you fit there. And if you try to follow those principles, then it's a good thing. It's steering us in the right direction, and we need to have that steer.
Mm.
So your advantage as a small training organization, looking at some of these examples we've talked about on this slide, is about scaling smartly, but still keeping that human-led experience. That's why learners choose small training organizations over the bigger ones, because they want that friendly personal touch. So we can't lose sight of that.
Yeah, very good point.
Next slide, please. Okay, so what did learners truly want, and how do we respond within the context of AI? I kind of talked a lot about this from the beginning, so I won't repeat too much here. But future-proofing careers, efficiency in current roles, and reskilling into AI-related roles. I think that all pretty much says what that it is on the tin there. But what learners are concerned about is what we're hearing from some of the comments coming through right now is that there's a general uncertainty. I'm going to skip to the bottom really. So people are unsure about it. They need to feel more convinced. And this is, as again, I see that as part of our role as training providers. We need to provide confidence to them. And if you don't feel confident as a training provider, that's absolutely fine. You can say that, but now it's like, well, what do we do about that? So if you fit in that camp, and I'm skipping almost all to the end of this presentation, but if you fit into that camp, then we have to go but through the system as our learners. It's like, well, we have to go and re-educate ourselves. We have to go and say, well, I need to sign up for more of these webinars, listen to some podcasts, sign up to some really sort of good newsletters, look at some trusted materials like online, not just look at the Guardian or the Daily Mail or the New York Post. That they look to the Economist, look to the New Scientist, or things of equivalent nature to understand. Look at some of the stuff that fine courses are generating and sending out, because those are those are going to be sort of quality sources, going to be quality ideas about what you can do, and then start to pick out what's right for your organization or what's right for you as a person. Um, so general uncertainty we can overcome. AI generated content quality, it's generally now you'll see if you use Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, it will ask, certainly YouTube, it will ask you if there is AI generated content within what you're posting, and it will flag it up there. So that tells us as training providers that if you're going to create a course which is 90, a good deal percentage just created by AI, then you should also follow those same sort of guidelines. It's there for a reason, but hopefully none of us here are doing that today, because I say it's not great. Um,
I agree. And one of the things I think we talked about previously, Darren, is how um, with a lot of these existing portfolios of training and courses in general, maybe having an additional sort of a modular approach and adding on little bits to existing very high quality course portfolios is quite an interesting thing to do here. Most technological advances have created a lot of extra jobs, so this whole piece is going to be making sure that all of us are ahead of the curve here and making sure that we are becoming experts in this particular field. So what are your thoughts about adding pieces to existing portfolios so you're not overwhelming it with AI content?
Yeah, it's a fantastic point, and it's a fantastic action point for all of us here today. That this isn't about, well, I've got to create brand new courses, I've got to create all this like new content. It isn't. It is just adding this piece in, or just weaving in some more examples and case studies about how new technology, not necessarily even just AI, but it could be like more automation, it could be just some clever pieces of software that are out there, but making our content more relevant. What are the essential learning points from each of your courses, or from the overarching training points that your courses are set to deliver? Those are the easy things. Those are the quick wins that Alex is mentioning that you can do like right now. And it's not that difficult to do, to find some case studies, just find some links to give some extra reading, maybe to find some white papers, some PDFs for people who like to have a look at maybe some, or reference some YouTube videos. And there's some really great content out there that we can do. If you look at even really big, larger organizations. I've mentioned Microsoft, but I think people like IBM, and there's some of the large consulting companies like Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey. Again, those are really trusted sources. Those companies are at the forefront of what's happening out there in the world, and they've got some great examples. And then those learners are going to be able to reference that to their employers or use that in their work, to understand what are the right decisions and the right pathways for them to take. This is all new to all of us. None
Mm.
of us have ever been here before. So to take some sort of confidence that if you're not feeling too sure, pretty much everybody else is in the same boat.
Brave new world,
It
Darren.
is.
And as you rightly said, a lot of the time it's making the content ourselves and using that to, as the learning process of AI, as from an algorithm perspective, it is learning all the time. So that um, probably going to be talking about that in the next slide a little bit as well.
Yes. Let's move on to Evie. Yeah. Okay, so how small training providers can stay competitive in an evolving industry. So then where do we start here? So I said here, start small, think big. I think it's the great thing to do very often, certainly when you kind of to digital transformation projects, that people think, "Oh, I've got to do everything," and you really, really don't. If you're starting out with AI for the first time, or you're still sort of like on the, you've got your ropes to hold you tightly, then just pick out something. So, for example, if we've just said like if it's about upgrading your courses, then look at what the overarching syllabus is saying on the course, what are the training objectives, and then see how AI can like help. If you still don't know the answer, you could just type some of this into Google to see what the results coming through. Otherwise, go and open up a large language model like ChatGPT, Perplexity, or one of those. Feed it the syllabus and say, can you give me some AI examples of how somebody in law or somebody in finance, whatever your sector is that you're delivering courses in, and it will give you some examples. don't just take for read what it's going to give you. Go and check those links because it does make some of them up. Go and have a look. Have a look at those articles. Are they great ones? Do you think they're great? Do you think they're really insightful? Are they going to really help you? And then get a discussion going with your learners. There's nothing, great. Start asking them. It could be a survey, it could be something like this as a webinar. You know your learners best, but start asking them about what they want, what's challenging them. Because then if you really understand, like in terms of what they're looking for, you're going to be able to deliver content that's right for them. That's going to lead you to have a better training organization, better content, and hopefully attract more learners. So it makes you much more sustainable as an organization because you know you're delivering quality content that they really, really want. If we've talked about learners there, but if it's actually for your organization, then I think like I would suggest looking at sort of departments of your organization. So I know that might sound like massive, but if you think of like even a small training organization, you might have accounts, an area, you have an account like a marketing department, you might have an advertising section. These all might all be jobs that one person does, depending on how big your organization is. But if you think of all these different departments and different tasks, then AI can touch each of those, but in a really different way, even down to things like risk management, finding, business development, finding new markets, launching new products, even to like collaborating with other partners. They're all different types of jobs and tasks. So think about what matters most for your organization. Is it about getting more sales? Is it attracting new learners? There's loads of different problems that AI might be able to help you with, and then you can start building your own AI playbook about kind of like what works well for you. Um, Another thing I kind of really massive about is AI champions, and I think is really great. Something you can take away, you can do this week. So even if you just even a small training organization, there's bound to be one person in there that is a little bit more excited about technology than somebody else. So sort of delegate this out, um, give them the opportunity to bring some ideas in about what AI can do in your organization, and then maybe have a experiment, have a little bit of fun with it, as long as it's not too high risk. And when I'm talking about high risk, I'm talking about things like uploading loads of data or sort of like, really sort of putting in loads of investment in because ChatGPT says that's a great thing to do. It's like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually just generating some ideas, some talking points about things that you might want to do in your organization. But seeing what it can do, looking at other ways that other people do it, I think is a really good starting point if you're still like unsure and you're not convinced yet.
Definitely. I will say as well, I mean, from our perspective at Find Courses, we've always tried to really underline the fact to all of our users, training providers and members who are looking to purchase training, um, about the value that we deliver in terms of data and how data rich we are. We genuinely try to let the data lead us. And I will say we've seen very clearly in the things that people are looking for that most training buyers, organizations who are looking to invest money in this, in training in general, want to understand how AI is going to fit into that. So any training provider is able to speak with authority about this subject, is always going to get the person's ear. I'm a little bit conscious of time, Darren, so I know we've got another slide to go after this one. Are we good to go forward, or have you got something else to comment on this particular
No,
topic?
that's absolutely fine. I'll kind of wrap up on the next slide, to be honest. So
Super.
on AI ethics and regulations, I just want
Mm,
to kind of mention that uh, we've got the EU AI Act, which I mentioned, but these kind of three elements I've got on the screen here are kind of part of the FAST principles. So FAST. I won't go into them now because I don't have enough time, but do look those up. Transparency, accountability, data privacy are all extremely important. So there's one example I can give you where a young company who were inexperienced about AI, they uploaded all their staff telephone numbers and email
right.
addresses. So if you really don't understand technology, and that's a really massive like increased risk, and it goes against GDPR and everything. So don't do anything like that. So just be quite conservative about what you do with AI. And if you do have AI champions, they will still need monitoring. They do still need training. And as Alex was saying, that you've got some fantastic courses. We run some great courses, and we're about 17 different AI courses. And all different types of subjects. So it's not that there's no training out there. So do make sure you still invest in training for your own team. Even just doing these webinars is a really fantastic way of just getting going with things. Okay, so we'll move on to a conclusion and then just a final sort of connection slide. Conclusion, AI is here. It's changing how people are learning and what they want to learn and how they expect to be supported. It's about we need to work with AI. It's not here to replace us. We need to work with it. But if you don't work with it, then there is definitely the fear that you're going to get left behind. But do understand more about your learners' motivations. Go and speak to them and be agile, and to be careful about how you use the technology, but don't be frightened of it either. If you'd like to connect with me to ask any more questions outside of this webinar, if you'd like to hear more about what I've got to turn around and say, on this slide, I do have a podcast, Future Ready Insights. It's new. I've only just about 8 episodes in. It's only about 12 minutes long each episode. But you'll find me on LinkedIn and on our website, ducadigitaltraining.com. Just a final thanks to Alex for inviting me. And I hope I didn't talk too much, Alex. I told you
No, not at all.
too
I
much.
think it's a good pertinent moment to remind all of our listeners that Darren was and is in our top 10 list for AI courses, which we're really proud to have him on board as one of our top 10 providers for AI. So it's been fantastic today to go over this subject matter. As we said the other day, Darren, we didn't think this was going to be enough time. We could probably talk for a good hour about this, but time is against us today. I think we have got another slide from to go to, which is effectively any questions from from our listeners. I do know that we had one from Alex earlier who was asking about some of those AI models that you mentioned, Darren. He caught Capture, but were there any others that you can think of that you want to
Uh,
mention?
yes, it's called Capterra. Um,
Capterra, right?
Capterra. I'll just pop it. I can't put it in the chat there. So
I
Capterra,
can.
Capterra, G2, just list the letter G and number two. And there's also Product Hunt. Those are the three that are really fantastic, and they've got some great newsletters. The Product Hunter's got a great newsletter. It comes out every single day, but it's just really interesting for some of the things that the software can do. And some things will tick your box and others won't, but it's great to see what's out there. And the other thing that's really good about the Product Hunt newsletters, those are all usually quite small developers, so they're startups. So if anybody knows about Canva, they kind of started out on that journey from Product Hunt, and they've grown up to this massive,
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Canva's part of it. That's fantastic.
yeah.
Do we have any other questions from anyone? Well, of course, if you do have any, then as Darren mentioned, please feel free to reach out to him directly, or ourselves at the Find Courses team as well. Pleasure, Richard. Hopefully it has been interesting for everyone, and something, again, as we said, it's the first of many more webinars that we're going to be providing here. So I guess it just leaves me to say, we hope the session's provided some valuable insights into the importance of AI in the training industry, and how it can empower both individuals and organizations in an increasingly digital world. So a special thank you to Darren Winter from Duco Digital for sharing his expertise and experience with us. If you'd like to explore further learning opportunities, please visit findcourses.co.uk, where you'll find a wide range of training options to suit your goals.